Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another new shell that we've never tested before, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what kind of results we can get out of it, because I think it should give us a pretty decent pattern, at least based on what we've seen out of this particular lineup of shells just in different pellet counts. So we'll see what this one can actually give us. But as for the shells I brought out here today, I got some more of these, the Federal Premium copper plated buckshot shells, but these ones are the 12 gauge 3-inch 15 pellet load of double-aught buck moving about 1100 feet per second. Now we've tested these copper plated buckshot shells in a couple different variants. I think we've tried the 2 3/4 inch 9 pellet. I think we've tried the 3-inch triple-aught buck version as well. And both of those, from what I can remember, did pretty decently. So I expect to see some decent patterns out of this as well. Now, is it going to be a flight control type of pattern? Probably not, because these are not a flight control shell, but who knows? They may surprise us. Either way, we should see something decent out of them at the end of the day here. But as for the setup I've got to run through, I brought out the Remington 1187 with its stock full choke. And for those curious, this particular choke measures at 688 constriction, but this stock full choke in this 1187 has been a very consistent, very reliable patterning setup when it comes to initially testing a new buckshot shell. Generally, if they do well through this, we can really tune them in and get us a nice pattern out of them. But if they don't do well through this, they're typically not the greatest shell. So we know we've got a good setup. It's just going to come down to what the shells can actually do. So as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the big sheet of paper set up at 40 yards. I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shell. And I've got the templates that we lay up over our target when we go check out what kind of results we got as well. So enough talking, let's get you guys a view of this target and take this shot and see just what kind of initial pattern results we can get from these Federal copper plated 15 pellet load of double-aught buck today. Alright, so that shell gave us 1100 feet per second through the chronograph, and wouldn't you know it, the box claim is 1100 feet per second. So we can't physically get any better than that. That is dead on their claim. So definitely looking perfect up here as far as velocity goes, but what kind of a pattern did they actually give us down at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And for our reference, the white dot was my point of aim. The paper is 36 inches wide by roughly about 42 inches tall. And we had all 15 pellets right here on the paper, 3 of which were right in my point of aim right there. And I did measure the farthest 2 points across in the pattern, which was the farthest top left pellet, all the way down here to this farthest right pellet. And that gave us right at 23 1/8 inch of a spread. So definitely not flight control territory, that's for sure, but we didn't expect that either. These are a plated, buffered load of buckshot with a small wad, which really does help from what I've seen in all of our buckshot testing. So overall, not a terrible pattern. It's absolutely usable all day long. Is it the most consistent pattern or even pattern we've seen? That I don't believe is the case. We kind of have little bunches of shot. We've got 2 down there, and then 3, and then 3 more, and then a couple over there, and then a little bit of a string stuff up here at the top. So definitely not the most even spread of pellets, but it could have been way worse as well. We've seen 15 pellet load of buckshot only put like 4 or 5 of them on this entire paper. So on the blank sheet of paper initially, definitely usable, not terrible, but not perfectly even throughout the whole pattern as well. But I guess let's throw a couple templates up, which will give us a little bit better reference as to how they actually did in some more real life type of scenarios. Alright, so here's our 10-inch circle, and if we line it up with what would be the essentially dead center core of our pattern, we had 4 out of the 15 pellets within there. Now if we scooted this template just a tiny little bit, pretty much any direction, we would probably gain or lose 1 or 2 pellets either way. If we scooted it way down to the right, we might have probably 5 or 6 in there, but if we put it dead center middle of the pattern, we had 4. So nothing groundbreaking, but nothing terrible either. But let's throw a couple animal templates up and see how it actually would have performed if you would have taken this particular shot out in the field on an actual hunt. Okay, so here's our deer template, and if we line it up with our point of aim, you would have had a definite 7 pellets that would have hit him, with several more that would have just probably barely clipped him around the edges here. So 7 to 10 pellets, depending on how you want to look at it, I suppose. So definitely plenty good enough to get you a deer all day long. As you can see, we've got 3 right through that white dot, right through the lungs and heart area. So yeah, I don't think that deer would have made it very far on you. And since this is just a little bit more of a broad pattern, it does give you a little bit of leeway to work with as well, if you were to move your shot up, down, left, or right just a little bit. So is it the most impressive pattern we've seen? Definitely not, but it is far from the worst we've seen as well. It is good enough to take out on a deer hunt. But let's throw the hog template up there real quick, just to take a look on a little bit smaller of an animal, or for those of you hog hunters out there in the south and stuff as well, what it would look like in your scenario. Alright, so here's that hog template, and based on what we're seeing here, you would have had probably about 11 of them actually hit the hog. And yeah, it is plenty good enough to go pig hunting with it as well, I'd say. And for those of you that might be looking at a shell like this for predators, a coyote would be just a touch smaller than this hog template, and you would still have a good enough pattern out to 40 yards to get the job done on one of those guys as well. So overall here, I definitely wouldn't say it's anything groundbreaking, but it is still a very usable pattern at the same time. We've definitely seen better, but we've also seen way worse. So I guess if this is what you have, or what you can find on the shelf or whatever, seems like we have a pretty usable load, which I still think we can get a little bit more performance out of as well with the right choke. Maybe that Kicks butt kicker might be the key for these. I don't know. Either way, definitely nothing revolutionary, but far from terrible at the same time. Okay, and here's the wad that's in those shells, and it is not a full-length wad. As you can see, there's my thumb width. It's like 1.5 thumbs or so. So you definitely don't have all 15 pellets contained within here, but they are a plated pellet with a little bit of buffer material. As you can see, there's a little bit stuck down in there as well. So with them being plated, having at least a little bit of a wad and some buffer, I think really helps these shells over just a plain old buckshot load with no kind of additives or anything. But the wad looks very much normal, definitely nothing too strange to see, and I think this should help us get a little bit better of a pattern out of them as well with the right choke, maybe that Kicks butt kicker or something like that. So the wad, definitely nothing too special here. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that performance right there? It's not the best we've seen, but it's not the worst either, that's for sure. We've definitely got a very usable pattern here, but I still think we can squeeze a little bit better of a pattern out of it as well with the right choke. So, I guess I'll leave it up to you guys. Let me know your thoughts about it down in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these federal copper-plated buckshot shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen out of them? And is there another choke or setup combo that you want to see us test these shells through? Let me know all that down below. But I guess overall, definitely not a failure, that's for sure. Usable pattern, but nothing groundbreaking at the end of the day either. So I think we've still got some room for improvement here. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like to. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.